well. And these are our temperatures: 12 in the north to 20 in the south. But we could see 21 in the southeast, the northwest, and also northwest Scotland. Sal and John.
Carol, thank you very much indeed. What would you call a bread roll?
A bun.
A bun. You'd say a bun, yeah.
Yes.
We're talking this morning about the range of different dialects and words used across the UK, and you've inundated us with suggestions this morning.
It has certainly started a conversation, hasn't it? All the different regional words and dialects that you might use, particularly to describe a bread roll. We're going to call it a bread roll. I think so that everybody understands what that is.
John's been in touch. He calls it a bloomer.
Oh, that's a good one.
We've had bread cakes, we've had all sorts, but experts are concerned that some of these kinds of words, these unique words used around the countries, could soon disappear.
Let's have a look now at some TV moments showing us all a range of regional phrases that you might recognise.
Hey, lasses! Where's they going then?
All right, Stace, what's occurring?
I need your advice, I do.
Go for it.
Mum says, have you got toothpaste?
Yes, and a flannel.
He's got it! Now come on!
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I know. I'm sorry. It all just made me a bit nervous.
Everything makes you nervous, Claire. You're a walking cack attack.
I can't help that. It's the way God made me.
Come on, lass. That's more important. Glad that Tom Cooper will seen the wee man all right. Huh?
Wow. What would you call it again? A batch? No.
Well, we've just had another message from somebody saying that they call it a scuffler.
That's a new one.
That's a new one.
Someone else said to me stotty.
I think we've had about 20 different words just for a bread roll.
Yes, and we're joined now to talk about this by lexicographer Susie Dent, along with accent and dialect coach Elspeth Morrison. Morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Susie,
Good morning.
why are we concerned that these phrases, particularly regional phrases, might be disappearing?
Well, Sally, I'm a little bit more optimistic, I have to say, than a lot of the reports that have been coming out, because when we talk about accent, when we talk about dialect, we very often think exclusively about accent, but of course we're talking about vocabulary today. And when I ask people for the language of their parents and their grandparents, it all comes flooding back. And you've got some of these coming in now. And in many cases, we are still using them, but we are so adept at code switching. You know, when we are with people who aren't from our area, for example, we tend not to use them. But the moment we go home, they're like a cosy, baggy, slightly old, but favourite jumper that we put on, and it gives instant comfort. So I think actually, when I ask people, you know, what do you call being hungry? What do you call a woodlouse, which weirdly attracts lots of different regional words, they do instantly remember them. And in many cases, they are using them. So I am hopeful that we will be hanging on. Obviously, there are some vocabularies that are dying away, you know, the language of collieries, of dockers quite often, and those are to be missed. But the basic words of our childhood, I think we're holding on to them.
So you just say woodlouse. What kind of words are used around the country for woodlouse?
Oh, my goodness. OK, so you've got cheese logs, you've got chuggy pigs, monkey peas, Johnny Grumps, roly-polies, granny sows. Pigs weirdly come into it quite a lot. But there are literally dozens of curious nicknames from right across the UK for woodlouse. And dialect does seem to collect around slightly weird themes, such as being bandy-legged. I think one of my favourite expressions, which you might know, a lot of your viewers would know, if somebody has unfortunately got bandy legs, they say, oh, he couldn't stop a pig in a ginnel. A ginnel being a really narrow alleyway. And that's another one. You know, we have snickets, we have twitchels. And it does collect around the really sort of basic things in life.
I like Johnny Grumps. You hear that quite a lot round Salford at this time of the morning, actually. But I think that's for different reasons.
You're never grumpy. Elspeth, now I know that as part of your job, you actually teach people to take on a different accent.
Yes.
How do you even begin to do that?
Well, sometimes using kind of little phrases or dialect words to get in. Not all. Nothing too strong though, because if it's so completely different, because learning an accent is quite hard if you're used to just your muscles are set up to speak the way you speak. But I might use, if I was doing, I don't know, London for example, I might use something like later. Later.
Later.
Right? Later. And,
Later.
and I know this isn't dialect specifically, but it's how people use language and change pronunciation. And when you come from one part of the country to another, like with the word later, I come from the north originally, went to live in London, and people would say to me, later, or see you later, and I'd go, oh, have we a meeting? Are we going to meet later on? And no, we weren't, because I didn't understand. So for this tiny grey island, we've got so many accents and so many words. And what Susie said, the dialects are changing and going different. And I don't know quite what the difference between is slang and dialect, but I do know the young people are coming up with all sorts of words. I heard one talking about his ends the other day, and I was like, I'm sorry, ends? E-N-D-S. And I was like, what's that? And he said, well, and I was like, oh, your neighbourhood. I think I'm being funky if I say down in my manor in my hood.
That's not funky anymore.
Not funky, no. But I've started using bling, which wasn't around when I was growing up. You know, bling, I think that's in the dictionary now, isn't it, bling? Is it? To mean jewellery.
It is, yeah.
But that wasn't around when I was growing up. But, you know, so new words are coming all the time. There is what Susie said. There is hope for us. Language isn't. It moves and changes all the time as accents.
Which is why, Susie, you love it.
Oh, I love it. And I remember during lockdown, John, I remember just putting something out on social media saying, you know, what kind of words remind you of home? And I was honestly just inundated with the best things, just strange things like asking what's for tea, invited so many different responses from parents and grandparents, like knobs from chairs and pump handles, or air pudding and wind pie, or asking when tea was ready was clearly risky business. You had sort of when the devil's a duck and you ain't been feathered yet. And all of these, I think, as I say, gave that sort of instant comfort. And that, I think it's a really interesting point, actually, is what's slang and what's dialect. And very often there isn't a distinction between local slang and local dialect. They all belong to a particular community. And that's the really important thing about these words, this vocabulary and the accents too, is that it makes us feel as though we belong. They are, it's our language, it's our wardrobe, and we might change it when we talk to somebody else, but it will always be there to return to.
Elspeth, you've worked with movie stars to try and teach them how to sound like they come from different parts of the country, and is understanding the language key to that?
Do you know what? Yes, understanding the language, but also particularly with accent. So dialect's more the actual words, but what I'm working with more is the actual pronunciation of sounds, what we call in the UK the accent aspect. So it might be rhythm as well. So if I was going to teach somebody a Liverpool accent, for example...
Very tricky to get right.
Absolutely critically difficult to get right, because even Scousers can't agree on it. I spend time listening to them in pubs arguing about it, and basically there's Welsh, Lancashire and Northern Ireland and Dublin influences there. So there's all sorts of different versions. But I might start with Liverpool. I know. I'm quite good, me. I might start with just doing the tune like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, because that starts getting them into the rhythm. Not that you do it the same way all the time, you know what I'm saying? So,
Elspeth, that is superb.
So I might start with a rhythm thing, or with like a kind of Scottish accent. I might suggest there's a wee trinity of sounds like oh no, okay, good, oh-eh-oo. Where I'd get them to stick their lips out and feel different muffles.
I'm not sure how we say this in any accent, but we've got to go. We've run out of time.
Well, I'll come back.
In fact, do you know what? We're later than we might have been. And then we should have been. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. Keep those dialect suggestions coming. We'll be back with the headlines.